And so I want to start in Genesis 5. But in order to understand what's going on here, we need to read the end of Genesis 4. Now, we have it on the screen. You have the English and the Hebrew underneath, at least the root word in the Hebrew. And so we'll go to 4, maybe a couple of verses, 2, 3 verses. 4:25. So in 4:25 it says that Adam had relations with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth. Now, we've learned that Genesis 1 is all about the seed. There's a million thoughts about Genesis 1. But when it comes down to it, we see that God created all vegetation that has seed, all animals that are blessed to reproduce and to multiply, and humankind to do the same, to bless, to multiply. And only then God says that it was all very good. So we can say 1,000 things about Genesis 1, but this is the essence of what chapter 1 is about. It's about this land and the animals and people blessed to reproduce the seed that with which they were created. Chapter 2 then asks what happened with that creation, right? We saw the phrases that occurred all through Genesis. This is what became of. In Hebrew, they're toldot, and we're going to see it in chapter 5 because chapter 4 ends the first section, toldot section, and then chapter 5 begins the second one. And we'll see if my little theory actually holds water, which is that every section, every toldot section is going to end either in blessing and possession of the land or curse and exile from the land. So we'll see that in this new section that begins in chapter 5. And hopefully, the reason I want to end with chapter 9 is because the third toldot begins in chapter 10. So at least I want to be able to close that book, so to speak. So we see then in chapter 3 what became of heavens and earth, of the vegetation with its seed system, of the animals and human beings. And we see it in the curse, what we know as the curse, in which the ground was cursed because of Adam's sin, right? So it's going to give seed now with a lot of difficulty, with a lot of hard work and toil. Then at the very beginning, the serpent was cursed. So that's what happened with the seed of the animals, that there's now enmity between the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. And when we talk about the seed of the serpent, it is a metaphorical seed. The seed of the woman is a literal human being, her children that Eve is going to have, and eventually we know the seed is Yeshua. But when we talk about the seed of the serpent, then it's not just, other bunch of little serpents that are going to come, right? But it is actually people who are the enemies, who show themselves somehow to be in enmity with the seed that God has chosen. Yes.
And when they're mentioning it, it says you're gonna harm his heel. The heel is Jacob. That's Achav.
Yeah, that's a play on word.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone who opposes Jacob, you can tell that's from the seed of serpent.
Yeah. The word heel, when it says that the serpent you will bruise its heel, the heel of the seed of the woman, is Ekev, which is a play on word. Remember that Jacob held to Esau's heel. And so that's why he was named Jacob. And it's a play on the word Yaakov and Ekev. You can hear how it sounds similar. And so persecution of the Jewish people is the hallmark of being the seed of the serpent. But it goes even before, because we see it from Genesis 4. We see it with Cain. And that's where we're at here, that she gives birth to another son, and then she names him Seth. And she says, God has appointed me another, what? That's the word for seed in the Hebrew. Oh, wow. You see how the thought of the seed has primary stage here. Primary importance. It's the seed. So Abel was the seed. Cain, who is the seed, the seed of the woman. Cain, who is the seed of the serpent, the enemy of the chosen. God chose the younger, like most of the times he does. He chose Abel, but Cain killed him. And so she got another son in place of, and she says it, in place of Abel, for Cain killed him. Now, not being the chosen seed that doesn't imply that, well, you have no option. You don't even have a chance, to being blessed or even to be saved. That's not what that means. It's not election unto condemnation. That's not what God does. If you go to the grocery store and you're going to buy apples, and you go to, let's say this is a very bad grocery store, and you go on Sunday around 4, where all of the Cowboys fans already came to the store and they bought everything. And so all you have is a pile of apples they're all rotten. You don't have to buy any, but you choose to buy some anyway. Did you reject the other ones? You're going to choose from among all the rotten. They're all rotten. You're going to choose some and not others. The reason you didn't choose the others is not because you are somehow mean or they did something. They were all rotten. That's humanity. We're all lost and we're all sinful. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he chooses anyone, he could just keep walking along and not worry about us at all. Amen, right? And not save anyone. Amen. But just the fact that he chooses to save some, it's already grace. And it's not a commentary on the one he didn't choose, because we were all rotten. And these things go far beyond our comprehension or even what's revealed. We don't have a full revelation to even account for that. But we have what we can understand, that he's gracious and he's infinitely just. So God gave Cain many opportunities to have a chance at avoiding this curse and this exile that he experienced. But he continued to choose the other way. So then, with that thought in mind, we go into chapter 5. Oh, by the way, it says, verse 26, to Seth, to him also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. Then, you see the word men is not actually in the Hebrew. It's in italics. Mm-hmm. So the translators are saying, well, then, here's what's interesting, because the verb here, began, is in third person singular, meaning he. Then he began to call upon the name of the Lord. This is probably either talking about Seth or Enosh. Right. Not necessarily all of humanity. Because we know Cain's line is not calling upon the name of the Lord. Mm-hmm. So just a little added there. So we go into chapter 5, with the thought that Seth is the seed of the woman. And we're going to now see his line, his descendants. And so it says that this is the book of the Toldot of Adam. Toldot is the phrase, right, that gives structure to the whole of the book. So this is the second section, the beginning of the second section of Genesis, the second Toldot section. And this is, again, this is a word that means this is what became of. This is what became of. Comes from the word yalad, which means to beget, what comes out of the womb. And so this word has that sense of what comes from, what became. So this is the book of what became of Adam. And scholars debate as to, what is the meaning of book here? Is it the whole book of Genesis? Or is it just this section that is called a book? Whichever way we choose, I don't think is really that consequential, as long as we get right the word Toldot here, that this is what became of Adam. Now, Adam at this point is all of humanity, all humankind. And so, and then he says, in the day when God created who? Yeah, this is the problem with the translation here. Choose one and stick to it, because the Hebrew is the same. It says here Adam, and here they translate man. Let's just keep calling it Adam. Right? So in the day when God created Adam, he made him in the likeness of God. And he created them, male and female, and he blessed them and named them Adam, mankind. In the day when they were created. So, when Adam had lived 130 years, he became the father of a son in his own likeness, according to his image, and named him Seth. We're going to bypass a little bit of the image here so that we can keep going here, because if I go into it, it'll take a little while. So maybe we'll talk about the image. We have talked before about the image, and maybe we'll address that again at another time. Then the days of Adam, after he became the father of Seth, were 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. So all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. So this is going to be almost like a formulaic kind of a genealogy, and it's going to break a couple of times. It's going to break right in the middle with Enoch, who it says that he walked with God, and he was not, because God took him. So I think Enoch had a rapture here, a pre-trib rapture. The Lord took him. The Lord took him. It's a beautiful thing. And it's going to say of Noah then that he walked with God as well. He was righteous. But the point here is to show that this is, in contrast to Cain's line, which was given in chapter 4, this is the seed of the woman. And it keeps, going from generation to generation. They are the ones that call upon the name of the Lord. They are the ones walking with the Lord. Yes, Michael.
Little confusion for me with, if he lived 105 years and then became the father, is there no place that he had other children, but is a significant reason for Father God to mention Enosh, but not the rest of the children in between? Or did he actually wait 105 years to have a child? It's a hard one.
No, I mean, it does say that he has other sons and daughters.
Other children, but if
Yeah.
it mentions it after he had Seth, So the question is whether other ones in between.
We don't know.
Specifics.
We don't know. I mean, the text doesn't say. You can go to other sources and probably would speculate. You know, that's a lot of Jewish sources will speculate. But the text itself, the inspired text, does not say. But it is important, the fact that we know that there were women for them to get married early on. So we're going to see then the line going from generation to generation. So I want to go to the end of chapter 5. Maybe we can pick it up with the story of Noah, or Lamech, actually, in verse 28. So Lamech lived 182 years and became the father of a son. Now he called his name Noah, saying, "This one will give us rest." So look at the word Noah in Hebrew, Noach, and the word rest, Nacham. They are related. So there's a play on words there. And he will give us rest. Now, it's not the word Shabbat. We get the word menucha, it's related to it, which is Sabbath rest. But there is a specific context. This one will give us rest from our work and from the toil of our hands arising from the ground which the Lord has cursed. So this is rest from the curse. So Noah is known for three things. He's known for the ark. He is known for the rainbow, and he is known for the rain. And the rain and the rainbow are obviously related. Well, all three are related because the ark is also related. But what brings rest from the curse, if you remember, the curse here is on the ground. So the curse made it hard, very hard, to work the land. Well, that's what rain does, the opposite. It makes it easier, right? So your plowing is a lot easier because the rain softens the ground. And you can seed it, and then the rains come, and it grows and causes it to grow. So this is a reprieve on the curse. It is the heaviness of the curse is lifted a little bit. And we see that, today in modern times with pregnancies and giving birth is a lot easier than just a few generations ago because of the medications that we have available. Now, I know not all of it is good for you, but there are advances or even in the cutting the mortality rate and things like that. So God is not opposed to science trying to ease up on the effects of the curse. Up to a certain point, of course. I believe there's a point in which it becomes its own thing and it becomes harmful, actually. But we see this is what God does. And we see a progression of that even through history. The culmination of history in the millennium is going to be a greater easing up, so to speak, of the curse, specifically over the agriculture. And we see when we read the prophets that the world agriculture is so fruitful during the millennium. And it is a result of something, got something similar to this, God lifting up the heaviness of the curse. And it's reflected also in the age that people will live to. So this is a prophecy over Noah. And in his life, what God is going to do through him. So then Lamech lived 595 years after he became the father of Noah, and he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. Noah was 500 years old, and Noah became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now remember, we are asking the question, we're seeking for the answer to the question of what became of Adam. This is the book of what became of Adam. And so Adam is the seed of the woman. And so we finally come here to, there's a change here in the genealogy, because we have been seeing one generation to the next and one person per generation. And so now we come to the generation of Noah, and all of a sudden we have three that are not in successive generation, but they're actually three in a horizontal kind of, if we were to graph it, they're in a horizontal kind of genealogy. They're all brothers. And this is setting up the stage to answer the question, what did become of Adam's seed? Of Adam's seed, of humanity. And so it's setting up now to answer it, and it's going to begin in chapter 6. Now it came about when men began to multiply on the face of the land. Now remember, this is Adam. When Adam began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. Great. Now, Joey, tell us, is this angels? Is this the giants? Is this the Nephilim? Is this aliens? I mean, you have the internet. You've read all the crazy stuff, right?
It's crazy.
All right, let's see if we can make sense a little bit of this. The first clue you need to understand here is you got to go with the easy one first, right? So you got to understand this, that it says that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful. The word beautiful is tov, good. Mm-hmm. They saw that it was good. We know this phrase, Genesis 1. And God saw that it was good 7 times. And God saw that it was very good. The next time, then it says that God saw that it was not good for man to be alone. So he created Eve. That was actually day 6. The next one is in Genesis 3, where it says that Eve saw that the fruit from the tree was good. So the activity of seeing that up to that point was reserved for God, now Eve took it upon herself to decide what was good for her. And Adam took part of it. So then now we have this phrase, and we understand what this phrase means in Genesis. The sons of God are deciding for themselves, whoever they are deciding for themselves what is good for them. And they're leaving God out of the picture.
Oops, that's never good.
That's never good.
That's never good.
That's a clue that is kind of easy for us to get because we know this phrase. So the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful. The daughters of Adam. We're trying to find out what did become of the sons of Adam. The seed of Adam.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
When did the daughters come into play?
It says that they began to have daughters. In the previous verse now, it came about when men began to multiply on the first face of the earth, the face of the land. And the word men is Adam. When Adam began to multiply. So it's either going to be Seth or Cain. Those are the only 2 options, right?
Right.
And so on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them. And actually, Adam did have other sons and daughters.
Right,
So there are other options, actually.
right.
But we have these two in focus here, and especially Seth, because that's what chapter 5 told us. So they're having daughters, and then the sons of God, whoever they are, they take it upon themselves, and they go against God's better judgment. So that's not a good thing. They took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. That's another clue. And then the Lord says, my spirit shall not strive with them, with Adam forever. So this thing that the sons of men did was kind of like the last straw. And what I'm going to suggest to you is that this is describing the corruption of the seed of the woman. Number one, we know the seed is what's at the forefront here. And we see a contrast, and on one side we see the daughters of Adam. So, because of the importance of the seed here and the drastic measures here, I think the drastic measures are to preserve the seed of the woman, the purity of the seed of the woman. So I take it that the sons of God, up here in the verse 2, the sons of God are actually Seth's descendants, the seed of the woman.
Why?
Because the actions taken in chapter 6 are presumably, and I'm not saying, I'm not being dogmatic here. If you have a different opinion, I can live with that, or at least I can hear it and see if if you convince me. But because the actions in chapter 6 are to preserve the seed, the purity of the seed of Seth.
So why would the sons of God be the sons of Seth? Why would that mess up the purity?
The best way to illustrate it would be Abraham instructing his servant to not allow Isaac to marry the Canaanites.
Right.
And then Isaac having a similar instruction for Jacob.
So they were the daughters of men, or
So these are going to be the daughters of either Cain or
Okay.
other sons
okay.
of Adam.
Yeah, that wasn't clear.
They wouldn't necessarily be daughters of Seth. They'd have been daughters, could have been daughters of Cain or,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and still been of Abraham, or
Yeah.
Adam.
sir.
Yeah, I had never seen that particular image in this slide before, but it, just as you had pointed out, the meaning of Noah's name and the rest that he was gonna bring, that was done to save the fulfillment of, the seed of the woman. But what we're also seeing here goes back to chapter 3, verse 6. The seed of the forbidden fruit had also been fulfilled. Because Seth's sons, being the sons of God, were now choosing themselves and making their own mind up what was told and what was not told.
Mhm.
And that is the fruit, that is the essence of what that fruit brings. So both things had come to fruition, had come to the extent.
They allude to one another. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but they had both come to full extent by the time we get to chapter 6. Thus needing
Yeah.
something to bring rest and to be able to reset.
Right. So it further justifies that a drastic measure needs to take place.
Right, because
There's a corruption going on in this generation that we already saw in the garden, in very similar terms. Yeah. Yes.
Why the distinction between sons of God and daughters of
Well, you got to have
Why would you just
a
say
guy
sons?
and a girl, and it is the seed of the woman is the man, and they're going to marry somebody to have a seed that comes from them, and they're marrying the ones that they shouldn't. Kind of like Isaac prevented from marrying Canaanites and Jacob.
I just wonder why, because it seems like sons of God would have a higher purpose than sons of men. So if they're all just people, why wouldn't it just say the sons of Seth or the sons of Cain, the son? So it's
Because what's important here, what was that? What's important here is the phrase Adam.
okay.
So because this is what became of Adam. And so what he's saying is he's trying to find a way to distinguish them and at the same time keeping them as descendants of Adam. So he found a way to. What's interesting then is that after this section of what became of Adam in chapter 10, when you begin to, it talks about. I didn't read. There was a point in which I stopped reading and studying, but it intentionally avoids the word Adam. And so it refers to humanity again, the sons of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and it is a concerted effort to not use the word Adam with them, preserving that word for this section to make that contrast. Yeah. So it kind of further corroborates that. Yes, sir.
It's basically a DNA change. And we have the sons of Noah.
I would agree with you in the spiritual sense, though.
Yeah.
In the spiritual, there's a spiritual DNA going on here that God did not want, but not in a physical way. They're still human beings. They're still sons and daughters of Adam, but these guys were the
But
chosen
some are
line.
Mars.
No, they're not from Mars. Yes,
These are not
or
Mars.
anywhere else. Yes.
Okay.
Isn't it possible, it doesn't say in the word, but isn't it possible that Hashem, bless his name, he made all the people besides Adam and Eve? Only for this reason I say that, is because when Cain killed his brother, and he's running away from the presence of his parents, he said to Hashem, bless his name, he says, isn't it possible
Whoever find me.
that whoever find me can kill me?
Mhm.
And there was just him and the brother, he had killed them.
Yeah, that's a reference to either children that already Adam and Eve had. We don't know how long this took, or that they were going to have. But I don't subscribe to having other, created other people, because then it falls up. Too much of Scripture falls apart, especially this idea of the seed being so critical. Last one.
The word just further down where it says, the word din, does that reference to the same din?
Oh, I see. This here, strive. Yeah.
Does that reference to the same English or Latin term of din meaning chaos?
I'm not aware of that Latin.
Well, I don't know if it's Latin, it just reminds me of when people are in din, there's chaos, there's confusion, there's.
I don't know that. No, actually, there is it's not clear as to the source of this particular word, because there are two options. And it's likely that this is a Hebrew word that means judgment. One other word for judgment. We get the word the name Daniel comes from this root. So God is my judge. But it's likely that it actually comes from a different root, and that's what the scholarly consensus today is, that it actually probably comes from a different root that means to abide, and to continue to to abide or to protect. That's what that means. That's what scholars are saying. So in a sense, God would say, I'm done protecting you with, from judgment. So, and now it's time. It's going to happen. Yeah. All right, we've got about 5 minutes, and I'm there close to chapter 9. Very, very far. Very, very far. All right, let's see what we can do here.
Yeah, you're not,
I'm not even close to verse 9, am
you're
I?
not even in Noah.
Okay, so, let's talk about the Nephilim, then maybe we can end with this, the Nephilim. Because then people will say, well, if the sons of men were angels or aliens or whatever, then, these guys are giants. And that's the reference here. These guys were giants, like Goliath, right? Or Og and Og, king of Bashan, and what was the other king that Israel defeated?
I'm drawing a blank on that one.
Yeah.
Well, Goliath too.
Sihon? No.
Sihon.
That is?
Yeah,
All right.
Og and Sihon. Which is very important. Israel is reading Genesis as they are preparing to enter the land.
Right.
So the giants is a real thing. So this is actually very pertinent to talk about this. And so what we read here then, the Nephilim were on the earth in the land, just like they're in the land as Israel is going to enter in those days. And it says, and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. So it seems to make a connection between the Nephilim and the marriage between the sons of man and the daughters of. Okay, let me see somebody. Okay. I don't know what that was. So those were the mighty men who were of old. I don't know what that is. I'm going to say connect. Probably the other guys over there using the other laptop. So they were the men of all, men of renown. Now, we know that we're going to have giants after the flood. So these guys are going to be wiped out in the flood. But there will be giants again in the land. And they are descendants of Canaanites. All of these kings. Now, the Canaanites are the equivalent of Cain.
Okay.
Cain's line. Definitely the seed of the serpent. They are the enemies of Israel. Not only Canaanites, but they're specifically all these giants. It was because of the giants that Israel did not enter the land. Right, so there's a great focus there in the early chapters of Deuteronomy on the giants, and we saw that when we went through it together. So they're going to appear again. Even these guys are wiped out. They're going to appear again, which points to, in my mind, it points to natural birth, not angelic or alien or anything like that. But it does point to a mix. For the Canaanite giants, we know that they are of the seed of the serpent. Who did they meet with? I don't know. I don't know. Definitely not with the children of Israel. But it could have been some Shemites or Semites that they mixed with. So at this point,
It was Canaanites.
yeah, they were the Canaanites, but they mixed with somebody. Mm-hmm. Yeah, through Ham. Mm-hmm. Which actually, if we can have a resolution for today, we can jump down to chapter 9 and still end with chapter 9 of sorts. right?
That's one way to get to chapter 9.
Keep going to go to 10 now.
Because 10 is going to begin the new Toldot section, right? These are the Toldot. So this is what became of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So that's the limit here. We know it's chapter 9. And I'm trying to get you to the resolution of what did become of the sons of the sons of Noah in this case. We kind of skipped because in chapter 6 it begins another section, right? So chapter 6 in the flood ends with the all of humanity, all of the sons of Cain, and the corrupted line of Seth. They all perish. They all perish in the flood. So in that sense, you have the curse and you have the exile. There's no greater exile from the land than to actually be wiped out from the land through a flood. You are exiled from the land.
Yeah,
De facto, right?
clean.
Pretty clean, right? So, and here at the end of 9, let me make this a little bigger because we're actually jumping a Toldot generation here. Because in 6:9, we have this is what became of Noah. So we are kind of skipping one Toldot section, which begins in 6:9 and ends in chapter 9. And so at the end of chapter 9, what do we have? Cursed be Canaan. That's what we have. This one is extremely, extremely important in the Torah, and I'm going to end with this. Extremely important in the Torah, because Canaan is cursed, but he is not exiled. Canaan is going to remain. He is cursed in chapter 9, and you have the rest of the book of Genesis, and almost to the end of the Torah, and actually it is in Joshua when finally the Canaanites are exiled. So the possession of the land and the dispossession of the Canaanites goes all the way back to Genesis 9. And it has to do with the ending of each Toldot section, which always ends with curse and exile, blessing and possession of the land, or at least blessing and promise of possession of the land, or curse and exile. Exile from the garden, exile from the land, from in the flood. And here Canaan is cursed, but they're not exiled yet. This exile is postponed until Joshua. And even so, Israel did not carry out the complete exile.
No.
Joey, who would be the Canaanite? Is there any descendants of Canaanites today that you want?
Good question. Good question. One can say, well, maybe through somebody's DNA they mix with. But what's important is this. When Scripture issues a prophecy to the people who live in certain land, in the end times, the prophecy is not necessarily attached to the DNA, but it's attached to whoever lives in that land. Let me put it this way. Who lives right now in Egypt? Primarily Arabs. There was a big transfer of population that took place through a lot of the Middle East. So in that regard, the Arabs are actually Semites. They are not from Ham. They're not Canaanites, which the original Egyptians were from Ham. descendants of Ham. So there is a transfer of population there, but the prophecies concerning Egypt in the end times are attached to the land. So in that regard, it doesn't matter what the Palestinians today claim to be from. It doesn't matter. You live in that land, you are fulfilling the prophetic words that have been spoken over the inhabitants of that land in the end times. And the same with the Jordanians and Lebanon and Syria and all of the Middle East.
Interesting, that's good.
It will be fulfilled to whoever lives in that land today. All right, we have no more time. Really short, super short.
Yeah, what we read today, especially chapter 6, because we're not gonna have the flood again, is important because Yeshua said, when he comes back, we're gonna be living in very similar times.
Yeah, yeah.
Similar times to what?
The days of Noah.
To the days of Noah. Yeah. Which is characterized by the corruption of the seed, which relates to the church apostasy as the seed of Abraham going against the seed of Jacob.